To essentially bring your business to the next level, you need to become what we call a world-class operator. From being a charismatic promoter, given any new market, any new business that you start, and then transitioning your focus from attention, acquiring customer, to becoming a very disciplined operator, learning how to manage systems, creating systems, processes, financials to scale sustainably is one of the most crucial things that I personally am going to be focused on in the next 2 to 3 years. And in this document, I'm going to outline everything, brain dump my strategy and growth playbook in doing so. Many fail to scale beyond initial hype because they lack the robust infrastructure and the systems involved. To reach the next level, entrepreneurs must develop what we call a mature operation capabilities, detailed bookkeeping, streamline your support system, having tight cash management, and good planning. Okay, so what we're going to do is break this entire playbook down into 4 different parts, starting with strategic vision, then going with leadership, going into operations, sales, organizational structure, and internal financing. Internal finance when it comes to accounting, bookkeeping, keeping track of your books and payments as well. Okay. So with that being said, to give you guys a prime example of what we do, we're a business lending firm and we broker out a lot of the deals. Some of the deals we do internally, some of the deals we work with partners on, and basically we provide a premium boutique consultative approach to helping small business owners across all industry to secure the financing on their behalf and getting them the best rate possible in that case. So one of our clear vision that I want our company to understand and also our team members is by the next 2 to 3 years, we want to hit a target of $100 million in annual funding with a great customer satisfaction rate of 95%, with a team of 30 people, top performers, over 10,000 brokers that we can source deals from, over 100 different partnerships, and also recognized as a top 5 referral partner across 10 national lenders that we partner out with. Okay, so that's how specific and detail oriented we are with our numbers. And the reason why is because if you're not detailed with your vision, it lacks a lot of, you're going to lack execution. You're going to be lost, and you're basically just throwing a arrow into into you know a, into something that's not even set as a target. So it makes it very hard for you to create any sort of growth plan behind your main objective, or even break that down into actionable steps that will help you achieve these sort of targets in the first place, right? So when we break down our key component in each of these numbers that we're trying to hit, we become very specific in how we're going to hit that. How are we going to hit $100 million annual funded as kind of like our main target, right? And that really starts from the type of market segments and the type of people we want to work with, that we treat or consider them as our ideal customer. Because one of our biggest bottleneck right now is trying to serve businesses and startups across all different industry, across all different size, and also revenue, right? And the ideal behind this is, while it might give us some business, it's not going to be scalable in a way where a lot of these things are going to be personalized based on, again, those 3 different factors. And then number 2, it just makes it very hard to train any team members on understanding a dedicated one-size-fit-all process in order to make sure your fulfillment or your operation runs as smoothly as possible. So my idea behind it is, in order to hit this huge target of $100 million funded in a single year, we need to really dial in who our market segments are, or who our ideal avatars are, right? And it can be anywhere between 3 to 5 different ideal avatars. That's most that I would like to do. And that is something that you also need to train your team on, and understanding, hey, these are our ideal customer based on different tiers. And this is the type of service or marketing that we're going to be using, and type of scripts that we're going to be using as well, right? Keeping our team size under 50 people. I like to keep our team lean. I understand in order to do that amount of volume, you need A players and you need 30 of them, right? And coming in with the mentality of not just hiring more people, but focus on the quality and focus on, developing the system first and seeing what gaps in the system can be placed with a team member that will help you QC that system, number one, and then number two, help you execute that system in a A plus manner, right? Um, Authority recognition, you need to be positioned in a very you know you need to position yourself as an authority, right? Unless if we were to serve the entire market with all different revenues, all different businesses, all different industries, it's going to be very tough for us to be kind of like the main go-to brand for a specific industry, or it's going to make it very hard for us to position ourselves as kind of the top player in this game. So in order for us to do that, we need to be strategic with how we segment our ideal clientele and then make sure all of our marketing, all of our clients that we work with falls under those tiers in order to, really position ourselves or climb up the ladder in becoming what we call a market leader in that specific subsection of the market, right? Customer experience is also going to be the most important part, actually the most crucial and component of hitting your vision, right? 95% satisfaction rate is what we aim for. And the reason why is given the financing industry or the business financing industry, the businesses really value relationship, right? So you want to make sure you are customer centric focused, and that really comes back to your core values of what you set in the company and the company's values overall. And this will help make hiring a lot more simpler and easy, because if someone doesn't fall under any of the values that you personally uphold in the company standard, then the work process or the communication with that particular team member is going to be all over the place, and it's just going to be hard to stay aligned based on who you are, what you believe in, and what your values are coming into this company. Okay. Example of world-class strategy, positioning, and execution, right, is having different offer in the market to make it as simple for your team and then also for the market to understand what you offer and specifically who you offer it to, right? And while this is a little bit vague for now, we broke it up into three different packages, right? And those three different packages is dependent on the revenue size of the business, number one, and then number two, the type of industry that we're planning to serve. And obviously, this is an example, and we're still in the process of refining this. What you're seeing right now is not necessarily going to be something that we're going to be implementing, but just to give you an bird's eye view of what that looks like is when you segment that based on revenue, right? A range of revenue will fall under one section, another range of revenue will fall under a different section, is because each of these offers is going to have its own different processes and also fulfillment that you need to create standard operating procedures for, that you need to also have a department for in order to scale it sustainably and predictably, right? So it's very important, instead of saying that you offer business financing, you break it down into I offer business financing within these three following tiers. Let's try to understand what tiers you fall under so I can give you a better analysis or a game plan customized to your situation or to your business in that case, right? And we look for different ways of creating additional revenue for the company. And given doing business loans is more like a one-time transaction, sometimes we do get paid on a monthly basis. We want to look for alternative services that would tie back into what our company offer as our core offering, and then what is also considered as a sticky portion of it, where they need to stay with us from month to month, or a way for us to generate revenue in the back end and have them keep working with us, aside from just those one-off transactions with doing business loans or lending out money in this case, right? Okay, so some of the growth playbooks that we're going to consider doing is having a small micro offer, $47 product. We want to make sure we have a low ticket offer, mid ticket offer, high ticket offer that's going to cater towards all types of, it's going to cater to a specific market segment But within that market segment, we also want to give the option for them to opt into our lower price tier packages, because we want to get them into the ecosystem, right? So the whole consensus with growing is to really understand different entry points on how people can enter into your ecosystem, and that will allow you to nurture and build relationship with them where they might stay with you or consider working with you on a different different package. But it's a good way to at first get eyeballs, secondly offer different entry points, so all types of people with all types of revenue in that segment can come in and really understand and value your services for what it is, and then you can consider having a backend system on upselling them, etc. Right? Building a lender exclusive concierge service. So that's one way for us to separate ourselves from other business loan brokering companies, is how do we kind of like brand ourselves as a luxury or exclusive, or offering a concierge service for premium clients that meets certain revenue of $500 or even $1 million per year, right? Running monthly private funding webinars with lenders as guests, that can also help you build trust, authority, and also bring in deal flows. How do you capitalize on your current resources or your current client list, but not only offering value but also building a strategic partner with them? And then what can you create in terms of tools or lead magnets that would benefit them, a business owner, when it comes to securing any business financing, right? It can be a credit monitoring service that we can build in-house that would keep track of their credit score on a month-to-month basis. It can be an automated so it can be an automated funding readiness tool that's basically, all of the prerequisite that we need these sort of businesses to meet ahead of time. Like, how do we, craft that into like a tool that they can use to see if they're ready or not, right? So now they're pre-qualifying themselves. They're using one of the company's assets in order to do so. And as long as they see value in helping them prepare to that stage, from getting them disqualified to qualify, right? That will allow you to build what we call like relationship type of deposits with the brand, with the company, um, overall, right? So focusing on world-class operations for business financing firms. So right now we talk about strategic, vision. How do we break that vision down, and what are some of the execution behind that? You need to also have a, very dialed in operation. That's what's going to separate you from your average Joe that's starting a business or trying to hit six figures, and whatnot. Is, instead of being a promoter when you're starting out as a starting out in a new business, all you're doing is promoting and doing sales, right? You're not really focused on systems. You're not, hiring. You're not having any sort of like process in place. And over time, in order for you to be sustainable in this business, you need to have a dial-in operation, and that really comes down to the system that you create in this case, right? So, what systems can help us, just make sure that we run our process smoothly while on an automated basis, right? So for example, like, there's going to be 1,000 people that might be interested in business financing. How do we kind of like qualify them to make sure they submit their documents, set up a call with us, submit their bank statements, be aware of how that process works. All of that, it really comes down to your operations and the system that you set up, right? And one part of the system is what we call the deal flow system. It's like, okay, the front end of taking in deal flows and doing sales, you need to make sure you have what we call a funnel in place that would help you, filter out leads that aren't serious, filter out people that wouldn't meet those requirements, filter out the people that doesn't meet your customer segment of your ideal avatar that you want to serve, right? And, having what we call a funnel, and then having these different channels where we send traffic to that funnel is going to be important, right? So what tools do you leverage? What type of requirements do you need to meet? Or do they need to, fill out? What kind of like automated conditional logic do you have in place that will help you filter out people that don't meet certain requirements that falls under your ideal target, segment of business owners that you want to work with, right? Having SOPs in place. Every time you create a system, right? Now, every time you create a system, only you know how to use it. Only you will understand the flow of the system. But when it comes to scaling, you're not always going to be the one to QC the system, quality check the system, or running the system, right? You need to have documented processes in place by helping your team member understand how to run that system on its own after you create it, right? So that's sort of like the whole structure and mentality there is just like, every system is set up for a reason to help you make your life easier, to make your customers' life easier. And you also need to set up a system in a way where it's easy for a new team member to come on and run that system for you while you focus on higher level, CEO type of responsibilities, right? And then the sales process, your CRM pipeline is going to be very important, right? What are the stages looking like, right? What are the different stages from the moment that someone saw your ad, from the point that someone saw, that they're interested in business financing? What does that step look like in order to get them onboarded into funding, right? So what you need to explain that thoroughly with your team. You need to explain that inside of your process, create that process inside of the system that you create. What does that look like? New lead comes in, some lead will show interest, some of them wouldn't show interest. What happens then? Some of them will book a call, right? By having a funnel in place, it will help you mitigate any missed opportunities or help you streamline this entire pipeline stage of different stages that a lead will go through in order to become a client, right? So new lead, show interest, book calls. How many of these new lead are going to show interest? How many of those that are showing interest is going to actually book a call on your calendar, right? What kind of system do you have in place in order to encourage them to book a call or even filter those leads, right? Is by having a funnel in place and having an application page that's going to filter out the people that don't meet certain requirements, right? How do you quantify or how do you dictate who's qualified or not, right? Using the system, right? The system can identify based on these answers, okay, he doesn't qualify for this, therefore we're not going to spend more of our team's time, right? You want to be efficient with your team's time, because every time your team is spending time on something that's not producing revenue for the company or moving the company forward, it's opportunity cost for you, it's costing you, and it's a liability for the company, right? What does that look like when you're closing them, when they're in fulfillment? How does onboarding look like, right? So there's important metrics that you need to track on all, given the sales portion of operation. Lead to close is an important metric from the point someone shows interest to your product, to your service. How long does it take for a sales rep or for someone to reach out to them to explain a little bit more about what they're interested in, to qualify them, right? Call to close, how long does that take? The time and funding, right? That's also going to be very important, because the longer that it takes someone to get funded, the more dissatisfied a customer or a merchant might become. And then also dealing with cash flow issue, you're floating your employee costs ahead of time and waiting to get paid until you get them fully funded and you get your payout or commission in that end, right? Understand what your average deal size, because all of these numbers are going to be important in how you make decisions when it comes to your marketing dollars and where your time is best spent to find these sort of leads on all, right? And then there's the underwriting and pre-approval portion of it, right? You need to collect what important documents you need to collect ahead of time to make this onboarding process easy. What does your team need to be trained on to understand how to underwrite a credit profile or even a business credit profile or the bank statements, right? To understand which lender to work with or even what products to even offer to them in that case, right? So you need to have one size fit all type of checklist, right? You need to train your team on it. You need to create training videos. You need to monitor them, test their knowledge, right? So a lot goes behind the scenes with each component of these systems that you're setting up, right? And then onboarding, follow-ups, fulfillment, what are some of the key components that you need to focus on to make this system run smoothly in a scalable way, right? Like, it's easy for someone to, take in 5 clients a month, but how do you convert that process to where you can take on 5,500 plus clients a month? You need to have something that's scalable. You can't be handling 500 customers at the same time. You're just going to burn out. You're just going to cause a lot of dissatisfaction on the customer's end, right? That's why systems are important. Outlining the key component of what a good system looks like is going to be important, right? So automated emails, next steps, videos, timelines, setting expectations with the client, right? It can be a video, it can be a PDF file that we send to them. Now the client will understand all of that ahead of time before even speaking with us, right? So it's nurturing them before the actual manual process happen, and that's what's going to be very important, right? Yeah. And then when it comes to sales system for a boutique financing firm, it really comes down to 3 different funnels, right? You have what we call inbound, outbound, partnerships, and referral. That's what we identify as kind of like the main 3 source. Inbound is, someone that is clicking or someone that knows your brand and they show interest in what they're already aware of who you are. They show interest in the services that you're offering and they're coming into your ecosystem. How do you capitalize these people in the ecosystem that they already came in on, right? And for example, like ads, we run ads, we get people into our email list. How do we reach out to them, convert them into closed deals or clients, right? Organic content, posting content, people following us already, right? How do we have a nurturing content system in place to nurture these people over time so they're informed about what we do and what those next steps look like, right? Outbound is basically like people that aren't aware of what you're doing, but you're creating a system that's going to, basically present what your company do or what your company do and what service or how this can benefit them without them knowing who you are in the first place or even acknowledging the problem that they have, right? So for example, like we would do automation reach out on LinkedIn, get people that might fall under a specific industry and ask, hey, how their business is going and if financing is something that they might consider doing in this quarter or at this very moment, right? It's people that have no awareness of who you are, what you do, and basically what you're doing is creating a system to give them that sort of insight to understanding this is what OPM Mastery is and this is what OPM Mastery is doing, right? And then partnerships and referral, these are where we get the best quality leads, and then also building relationship and getting a consistent stream of referrals, partners sending us referrals. This is sort of like the cheapest and ideal way of getting customers, right? Because let's just say you're spending $1,000 per customer that you get into your company or wanted to work with you, right? You're still spending advertising budget money in order to acquire a customer, whereas referral, it's more, you don't have to really spend any advertising or marketing dollars in order to acquire customers coming from referrals, right? Referrals is more like it's more free, right? And you want to create a system in that case to make sure it comes in predictably and consistently for you, because that's the most efficient way of acquiring new customers in today's age. Okay, and then we broke down the world-class sales call framework, what that looks like. I'm not gonna talk too much about it, but in terms of our sales team, this is ultimately what I want to build out, where we already have two different roles already filled up. Now we need to find a sales manager role and then hire more roles under this where the sales manager can audit them and focus on their sole responsibility on helping these two roles excel in what they're doing, right? So very, very important stuff. Okay, delegation is going to be important. Stay tuned for part 2. I think there's so much to cover over time. So in the next video, we'll talk about delegation, CEO focus, and then what we're going to do is kind of like break down how calendars and meetings, cadences will look like. We're going to talk about hiring, training, development, what your organized structure will look like, right? And then we're going to talk about finances, internal financing department, having a world-class bookkeeping system, keeping track of your books, doing really good accounting, keep making sure that you keep track of that, because that's one thing that I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs are going to lack on when it comes to running their business. It's they can have a great revenue month, but at the end of the month they're not making any profit. Why is that? It's because they don't have a good auditing or QC system in place, or even a bookkeeping system to understand where the cash is coming in and where it's going out at the same time. Okay, that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.